Let us welcome the 10th speaker. The 10th speaker is Mr. Shinsei Sho. His speech title is Biased Consideration, Biased Consideration. So Mr. Sho, please come up to the stage.
Thank you to the master of the ceremonies, distinguished judges, questioner, and timekeepers. Hello, everyone. Hello. I think all of you have been inspired by other 9 speakers, but I also hope you would enjoy my last speech. So, before starting my speech, I want to ask you a question first. Have you ever had an experience like this? You meet foreigners who speak fluent Japanese, and after hearing their Japanese, you say to them, "Oh, you speak Japanese very well." When you say this to them, what are you thinking? You're thinking of how to show them your kindness, or in other words, your consideration, I guess. Generally speaking, when you show others your consideration, you're not going to hurt them. On the contrary, you want to get along with them by saying such phrase. But does consideration always make others feel happy? In fact, in some situations, your consideration toward foreigners can be harmful, especially when talking with a person like me. I was born and grew up in Japan. I have lived my whole life in this country. But I am ethnically Chinese. Since both of my parents are of course Chinese, my family name does not sound or seem like an ordinary Japanese one. So when I show my name written in kanji, others will think that I am from Japan. If they hear me speaking Japanese, they always say to me, "Wow, you're very good at speaking Japanese." They find out I'm a foreigner, and may think I had a tough time learning Japanese. So they try to show me their consideration and praise me at this moment. However, when I hear a sentence like, "You speak Japanese very well," not only do I feel strange, but I also feel I'm being treated as an outsider in this society. Since I was brought up in Japan, my mother tongue, of course, is Japanese, and the Japanese culture permeates my very being. I identify myself as Japanese. So even though they may try to show me their consideration by saying such phrases, what I always feel is completely different from such consideration. This is also true of other foreign people living in Japan. One of my friend's father is French. In the past, I had the opportunity to hear about his experiences living in Japan. He said, and I quote, "I have lived in Japan for about 20 years, and I can speak Japanese very fluently now. But there are so many people who don't regard me as a member of this society." I asked him, "When do you really feel like that?" He answered, "I feel such isolation, especially when people evaluate my Japanese. So for example, when people say something like, 'You speak Japanese very well,' or 'You're very good at speaking Japanese,' and so on." He also has the same feeling as me, and I can empathize. From these stories, there is one thing I want you to notice. That is, talking about foreigner Japanese skill is in fact quite sensitive to them. As you can see from the stories I just shared with you, some words which you may think are your consideration toward foreigners, in fact make them feel isolated. I want to call these phrases biased consideration. The reason why I call so is that many Japanese people unconsciously think that foreigners cannot speak Japanese at all, and it is quite surprising if they can speak it. However, it is not always true. For example, for those people who have lived in Japan for more than 10 years or 20 years, or for those people who were born and grew up in Japan, speaking Japanese is not something special, but it's just the basic skill for them to live in Japan. So there's a big gap between what Japanese people think and what foreign people really feel. The problem here is that many of us start our conversation with foreigners simply by talking about their Japanese, even though we do not know those people well. Actually, this leads to biased consideration. Before giving a compliment, we should think about whether we can say such things or not. For those people who have just started learning Japanese and do not have the identity of Japanese, you can say they're good at speaking it, because it is still special for them to speak it. On the other hand, for those people who identify themselves as Japanese, just like me, it should be avoided. Then, some of you may think, how? How can we judge? The answer is quite simple. Ask some questions about their background first, like, how long have you lived in Japan, in order to better understand them. In this globalized world, there are many people who live overseas for work or study. And only talking about Japan, there are 2.4 million foreign people living in this country now. And this number is growing year by year. This means you have more chances to meet foreigners who have experiences similar to mine or my friend's father's. If you start a conversation with them through your biased consideration, some misunderstandings would happen, or you would unconsciously hurt them. In order to avoid such situations, you should remember the gap in thoughts between Japanese and foreigners. And also, I want you to meet more and more people from different countries and have communication with them. When you talk with them, please try to ask them what they really feel when living in Japan, or what kinds of difficulty they face in Japan. By doing this, you can know such people much better, and this should lead to reduced bias or prejudice about those people. So ladies and gentlemen, please remember, consideration does not make others feel happy if it is a biased one. When you have a conversation with foreigners, please try to compromise with them. Please try to know more about them. Please do not see them through your biased consideration. If you can talk without your bias, then you will surely be better friends with foreign people. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Sho. Now, we have a question and answer session. Ms. Fukushima, please.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
So, why do you think, Japanese people often say, you speak good Japanese? I mean, like when I'm in the United States, no one comes up to me and say, oh, your English is good or your Japanese is good. Why is it only in Japan?
It's a quite difficult question, but I myself think that it is because in Japan, there are only Japanese people. But on the other hand, in the United States, there are a lot of kinds of people in that country. And I'm not sure, but maybe this leads to make us to say something like that.
Okay. What can you do to change the mindset of the Japanese people?
Yes, I think there are two things I can do. The first one is making speech in front of more and more people. Actually, I think this experience this kind of speeches is only I can do because of my background. And this is the first one. And the other one is talk to each of my friends, or each of the person I meet for the first time, to talk about the things I say in my speech. So the first one is making speech, and the second one is talk to people, person by person.
You said you feel like you're an outsider when people ask you that your Japanese is good. What kind of difficulties have you had in Japan feeling as an outsider?
Actually, in my speech, I was talking about only talking about you speak Japanese very well, but there are another things like, oh, you can use chopsticks. You know Japanese culture. Oh, you know this animation. Of course I know, because I was brought up in Japan. So this is a kind of difficulty that I face. And in order to make the friendship better, I cannot every time say that, oh, I feel depressed by being said that. So this is a kind of difficulty I face in Japan. Yes.
And talking to people and making speeches, can you see that things are changing here in Japan, or it's just the same?
Actually, around me, I can see the changes. For example, I have been doing this speech for about half a year, and I found a lot of people think, oh, I should care about what I say to foreigners. So it means, it shows how I can see the changes caused by my speeches. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Fukushima and Mr. Sho. Please go back to your seat.